Hobby Quick Hits. Delivering that breaking hobby news directly to your earlobes. You want to know those hot drops from the card shop? We've got you covered. With your host, John Newman.
Welcome to another edition of Hobby Quick Hits. Today's episode is going to be about NIL, name, image, and likeness. It is a game changer in the hobby. Whether you like it, whether it's something you're going to buy, stay away from, however you approach it, it's going to change the hobby. And we're going to look back. We're going to learn really what it is. You know, people talk about it without really explaining what it is. I'm going to break it down into simpler terms. We're going to talk about some past issues where athletes have been featured on sports cards before they made the pros. It's not a precedent. It's precedent for the hobby, though, that it can be more prevalent now. But we're going to talk about some examples in past histories. We're going to go over the pros and cons. It's not all one side or the other. There's check marks in both sides, pros and cons. So we're gonna cover it. Hopefully, like no one's done really before. But not gonna be a long episode. But we're definitely going to get detailed about NIL and what it means for the hobby. But first, we're gonna hear from our great sponsor. And then we're going to hear all our segments, Q&A, hobby news, and then we'll get into NIL.
MojoBreakShop.com is the best place to get your sealed wax products and breaks. They not only have the best selection, but the best prices. Whether it's a box or a whole case, they are your guys. They ship worldwide to your doorstep. Their reputation as one of the most trusted in the hobby goes unmatched. They are the 2021 Topps Rip Party Champion Breakers. From sports card to Pokemon cards, their selection can't be beat. They offer daily deals and pre-orders.
Hey guys, John Newman here. Mojo's prices are already great, but to save an additional 10% off anything in their store, use the code QUICKHITS. That's QUICKHITS. Check out the full-service store that's open 7 days a week in Santa Clara, California, or the website at mojobreak.com. Time for this week's incoming product releases. All right, 7 items on the docket this week. Keep in mind, shipping problems and production delays, but this is what's scheduled. But some of these may be pushed back or delayed. But here's what's out this week, or hopefully it's out this week. On the 20th, 2021, Panini Phoenix Football. Also on the 20th, 2022, Topps Archive Signature Series Baseball. Also, 2021, Topps Big League Baseball Hobby and Collector Editions finally makes its appearance. An item I talk about on this very podcast on the 22nd, 2022, Bowman University Football. Also on the 22nd, 2021, Panini Prism Collegiate Draft Picks Baseball. Also on the 22nd, Pokemon Bolton 5. Also on the 22nd, speaking of NIL, 2022 Wild Card Illumination NIL Football Collegiate Edition. And so there are your 7 items scheduled for this week. Hopefully they all arrive on time. Choose your weapon. Happy ripping. It's time for the Hobby What's Up, where we go around the hobby world and tell you all the latest news and breaking stories from the hobby we love.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
All right, the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth is now back at the Ruth Museum in Baltimore. It will be under special security, but you can see it there along with plenty of other Babe Ruth memorabilia and things from his life. I've never been, but those who have went have told me it's a cool place, and if I ever get to Baltimore, to check it out. So the 1914 card is now back there. This is the card that 1% was sold through collectible by the owner. Jackie Robinson Day was, this week, and in 1951, game used Jackie Robinson jersey is currently up for bid at Golden Auctions. It has a $2.4 million bid at the moment. The auction is still ongoing. The same jersey 3 years ago sold for $576,000. So the buyer of that from 3 years ago, assuming it's the same person, is right now going to, almost 5 times their money if no other bids come through. But the auction is not over. Also in that golden auction, when it comes to Jackie Robinson items, two other unique things: a 1951 All-Star Game used bat from Jackie Robinson, and the Hall of Fame plaque that the Baseball Hall of Fame gives you when you are inducted. It's in the frame and that sort of thing. Pretty cool, unique, one-of-one item, if you will, from Jackie. That's also in that auction. If anyone wants to buy me any of these items, let me know and I'll forward you my address. All right. HGA News. I don't even like talking about this group. I've made my feelings known on what I think of them as they've been run as a company, the multiple mistakes, the foolishness that, frankly, if you send your cards there, whatever. But let's get on with the news. So Tyler Hitt, the founder of HGA, has sold out to a group called American International. They have no hobby or card background. I know people, I hear people say, well, the new owners are going to, revive this company. It's my feeling, folks, that this is the death nail, actually, for HGA. I believe this American International, Armstrong International, is buying the technology. They're not buying the grading company. This is not a hobby or card experienced company. I don't think they want a grading company. I think they want some of the technology, as minor as it is. And so I think this is just sort of, and I could be wrong. It's all speculation, right? But this is my opinion. I think this will be the end for HGA, as I sort of predicted earlier this year. Remember that Brady ball, the last touchdown ever thrown by Tom Brady? And then the next day after the sale, he announced he's coming back. The gentleman that won the ball hired an attorney, Jeff Lickman, as a representative, but it never had to go to litigation. Leland's has decided to nix the transaction. So it was reversed, and the buyer did not have to pay. Now, as far as what happens to the ball, that remains to be seen. But as of right now, it does have a last TD potential to it in more ways than one. Number one, it still is until Brady throws that next touchdown, which most certainly will happen. But it does remain the last playoff touchdown pass thrown by one Tom Brady. So if they do not reach the postseason, or they do, and he doesn't throw another touchdown pass, and he retires again, and stays retired, right now it would be the last playoff touchdown pass thrown by certain Hall of Famer Tom Brady. All right, going to do something that I don't always do on these shows. Doesn't make it less important when I do it. But, we just celebrated Easter I hope everyone that celebrated Easter had a great one with their family. But I want to do something for somebody that hasn't had a great year, if you will. Many of you might remember, unfortunately, in December, the Waukesha Christmas Day Parade tragedy, where a madman in a truck ran over people marching in a parade, killing many. Two brothers, Tucker and Jackson Sparks, were marching with their baseball team. Their brothers, 12 and 8 at that time. They both were hit by that crazy truck driven by a madman. And 8-year-old Jackson Sparks succumbed to his injuries. His older brother, Tucker Sparks, survived, suffered a fractured skull, was in ICU, went through some surgeries, but thankfully made it out eventually. They were both card collectors, their favorite team, the Brewers. And Tucker just recently threw out the first pitch at the Milwaukee Brewers home opener. There is now the Jackson Sparks Foundation that does a lot of charity work for young baseball players who have suffered tragedy, losing a parent, or some kind of event along those lines. Check out that Jackson Sparks Foundation. Just search that in Google. It'll all come up. But I wanted to do something for Tucker, who's obviously had a rough go of it. Thankfully, while he survived, lost his brother, went through some surgeries, suffered a fractured skull. And, he collects Christian Yelich cards. And I'm going to send him everything I have, which I wish I had more than I do. But I'm going to send young Tucker every Christian Yelich I have in my possession. And if anyone else would like to send, him and his brother did collect together, send Tucker their Christian Yelichs. That's his favorite player. I'm going to give you a P.O. box to send it to if you're so inclined. Here is that address. Tucker Sparks, care of the Jackson Sparks Foundation, P.O. Box 115, Mukwonago, Wisconsin. I'm going to spell that. Mukwonago, Wisconsin. W-I, short abbreviation. Zip code 53159. That's P.O. Box 115, Mukwonago, Wisconsin 53159. Collects Christian Yelich, but he's a Brewers fan as well, so I'm sure anything Brewers related he receives, he will appreciate. That was their favorite team. So, again, I don't do this all the time, but this really struck a chord with me, struck a nerve, and I followed this case actually not knowing this backstory. I just, I'm a current events guy, and then when I found out all the specific details, it moved me to do this. So anyone that wants to help out, send young Tucker some Brewers, some Yelich. I'm sure it'll brighten his day. It'll also make you feel good, as it always does me when I do things along these lines. So there you go. If you want, you can reach it. If you didn't get that address, even though I said it a couple times, by all means you can message me and I can send it to you. So there you go. Thank you.
Answer my question! The question! I'll answer the question. You want answers?
All right, today's question comes by way of Daniel from Instagram, and I like today's question. He says, John, I listened to your show, great podcast. I like that you say you are welcoming to a lot of the newer folks, coming into the hobby. You're a better man than I, but is there something about the newer hobbyists that maybe you change or you're not particularly fond of, even though you're accepting of them? And that's a great question. Made me think, but I didn't have to think for too long. And I know a lot of times when I do these Q&As, I wind up giving like two answers. I'm going to give you just one on this question. So, pet peeve with new hobbyists coming into the space. And first off, as you already know and alluded to in your question, Daniel, I welcome all new people to the hobby. We need that new blood, if you will, to push and drive the hobby forward. We need not only for them to come into the hobby, we need for them to stay and be active in the hobby. But what is my pet peeve with the new people that are coming into the hobby? And, some of you might say, well, I expect John to say like the flippers, the people buy, one day and sell the next and those sort of folk. No, that's capitalism. That's America. That's legal. I think the one thing that bothers me, if anything, that I can kind of put my thumb on with new folks coming in the hobby is and again, I'm not going to paint with a broad brush, not all of them, but a good majority of them don't seem to care about prior history. They don't look back at things that are happening, in the past, prior shows, prior releases. They only care about, the here and now. And I get it, some people are more into history than others. I understand that. But, I'm not going to mention a name. One of the reasons this kind of came to me very quickly, and again, like I said, I'm not gonna sell out who it was, but I was talking with another content creator, and they sort of wanted to come on the show, and I don't know how it came up, honestly, but it came up, about Dr. Beckett, and I was talking about Dr. Beckett's show, Sports Card Insights, and this gentleman said, "Who's Dr. Beckett?" And like, I don't know. To me, like, again, that guy should be, if there is a Mount Rushmore to hobby, he's on it. And I guess it's sort of, I don't want to say neglect. Maybe I could use that word, right? And the neglect to like sort of acknowledge the past, right? Because if we don't acknowledge the past and current, I mean, that's current too. I mean, this show is obviously terrific and sound like an infomercial, but I'm just being honest here. But, and it's not just about Dr. Jim, but, if you don't have any, and the more I talk to this person, I just realized he was just completely oblivious to anything that happened like 3 days ago. And it just, I'm not going to lie about it, really rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm just like, hey, man, learn some stuff, man, do some research in the hobby. And it's a great hobby with a great past history. It's got a great future as well. But that past history is a big part of the great future, right? Because without it, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I guess that scenario really made me think about it. And in defense of that person that I will not name, they're not the only one that would probably, fit that bill. There's a lot of people, but, I know whatever I'm sort of into, if I get into a new space, I always try to find out and kind of consume as much information about prior stuff. Not even to be an expert, but just to have an awareness of it, a respect for the space I'm in, if you will. And so I guess that's one thing that bothers me with a lot of the new influx is their, whatever reason, their unwillingness to learn about the hobby of, the past of the hobby, which to me is the bridge to where we are today.
And now, our feature presentation.
All right, today's topic, NIL, name, image, likeness. What is it? This is now allowing players, college athletes, to get paid for their name, image, and likeness being used like never before. But what was the precedence for this, right? If you're a sports fan, if you live in a college town, or even if you don't live in a college town, you've always heard the age-old debate, right? Should college athletes be paid? They're in college video games. Their jerseys are sold in the college stadiums, right? Sometimes they have names on them. Even when they don't have names on them, you know whose they were. Florida Gators number 15 might not always said Tebow on the back, but everyone knew who it was, right? And for years, the colleges were making millions of dollars off the player's name without the players getting a penny. Now, people argued, well, hell, John, they are getting paid. They're getting a free tuition. Some of these colleges are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. They're not having to pay a dime. They're getting room and board, all that stuff. And I get that. But we're talking millions of dollars here. And some will argue, that the players are getting perks. Now, I'm going to be very honest here. I live in Syracuse, home of Syracuse University. Basketball programs most times pretty good. Football has its ups and downs, mostly downs. Lacrosse has won numerous national titles. And, but anyone that follows the program real closely, even back in the day, has heard the whispers, right? There's a car dealership here that the players were given a car in someone else's name. Carmelo Anthony, who was here for 1 year, didn't long for nothing. He always had what he needed. It was all, people you heard it through the whispers. And you've heard that at other colleges, that certain athletes got perks. We all know the Reggie Bush in USC, right? Mom got a house and all sorts of other stuff where he actually lost his Heisman. I think he got it back eventually. But repercussions, wins taken away, different penalties handed down, right? So athletes kind of been paid, certain athletes, I should say, maybe have gotten perks under the table, illegally, albeit, the NCAA rule book in general really needs to be rewritten anyway. I mean, there's a rule in there that, a player can get a bagel bought for him, but if cream cheese is on it, that breaks the rule. I mean, it sounds silly, but that's a real rule. And there's other rules along those lines that are just really goofy. But before we get into NIL and what it means for the hobby, let's go back to kind of what started this movement. Why do we have it now where we never had it before? And it's always been a debate, whether college athletes should be paid for the use of their name, image, and likeness. They really got intensified with former UCLA basketball player Ed O'Bannon. If you remember, in the late 2000s, he sued the NCAA. Says, "Hey, we're in this basketball game, right? NCAA basketball. Everyone knows what each of these guys on the team. They're not using names, but they're using our numbers. Everyone knows who's who, and we don't see a dime for it." And he took the NCAA to court. Now, he didn't win in terms of the athletes should be paid, but the judge ruled in favor of Ed O'Bannon to the point of $45.9 million. So the judge said that the NCAA needs to pay all of Ed O'Bannon's attorney fees, and awarded Ed O'Bannon to pay for those attorney fees in the sum of $45.9 million. So the NCAA had to pay the Ed O'Bannon litigation team $45.9 million. Whether Ed O'Bannon got any of that, I'm not aware of. Something tells me something got funneled his way. But again, that's pure speculation. what did it really ramped up more of the debate, right? When that decision was ruled by that judge in favor of the Ed O'Bannon and his litigation team, it really ramped that argument up. And in 2019, California passed the Fair Pay to Play Act. Really, it's the NIL before the official NIL. California said, we're going to lead the way. We're going to do it now. We're going to be the first ones to do it. And so it started in that state, and that really got the ball rolling to the NIL we see now. Here locally, we have, Jim Boeheim, coach of the basketball team, his sons, Buddy and Jimmy Jr., have done, local cereal. They've done a lot of local television ads. This is stuff that couldn't be done before. And we've seen other, obviously, athletes do commercials or branding because of the new NIL rule. What's it mean for the hobby? We're obviously going to get cards of athletes sooner than ever before, especially in non-baseball setting. We're sort of used to athletes, baseball players with the Bowman draft, right? 4 or 5 years before they can make the big leagues. But we've never really got that in the other sports like we will now. I want to, go back in history, right? It's not unprecedented, right? We have the 1960-61 new cards football sets that have a lot of the college all-star footballs. There's an Ernie Davis card in that set that's kind of considered one of his first cards, and many people consider it a rookie card. It depicts him as a member of the Syracuse Orangemen, not yet drafted by the Browns. Unfortunately, as many know the story, he was stricken with leukemia and never played it down in the NFL. He has a 1961 Topps card, which is considered his pro rookie card. I'm the owner of a couple of those, proud owner of a couple of those. So that was one of the first, in football, we've seen some college cards back in the day, and then even in baseball, pre-Bowman, right? We saw some of the front row and classic draft picks, right? Classic draft picks did, the 4 sports, right? Football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. We saw some of the people entering the draft even before, they were selected. Like everyone knew Shaq was going to be number 1, but he had classic cards of him in his LSU uniform. We had some autographs in there. Remember Shaq, Phil Nevin, guys like that, Jeffrey Hammonds. Back in the day, some of these names might not strike a bell to you, and to certain others of you, you're like, oh, I remember that guy or that name, right? And so it's, it's not uncharted territory, but, now it's across the board, and we're seeing players sign individual deals with card companies and other, entities. And we're seeing, whole leagues do that, with the overtime elite league for basketball, Topps producing the Chrome release of that, and every one of those say first Bowman on it. But, before the NIL, that could never happen like that. And so this opens up a whole new world to the hobby. It's something, my stance on it personally, if I like something, I'm going to buy it. I'm not, where my stance is with NFTs, if I can't hold it, see it, touch it, I don't want it. I don't have that in the sense with NIL. Will it hurt? It could potentially hurt in this respect, right? You got to remember the deals. Spencer Rattler signed over $1 million deal. I forgot who it was with, and he, thinking he was really ramping up to be a top pick, a number 1 pick, and had a terrible year following that deal. I'm sure that company would like to redo that deal if they could. They can't. It's a binding contract. So you got it. These companies that want to fork over millions of dollars to these young players, and many have since unproven. because there's a race to get to these guys early before another company do and kind of overbid or overpay or be the highest bidder. You're taking the risk that this player, this athlete, is going to live up to the hype, especially early hype. And that's not always the case, as we saw with Spencer Rattler. And there's going to be others as well. And everyone's trying to get in on that ground floor, that ground level. Get that guy first, or get that player first, I should say, because women athletes are just as much part of this as the men. Matter of fact, the first two athletes to sign were, I believe, the Clevenger sisters. I don't know if I got their name wrong. I believe they were Fresno State twin volleyball players. And you can look it up. They were the first two to take advantage of the NIL when it was legalized. So, these companies that are going to fork over the money, it's an investment they're making. Not all investments pay off. If you've dabbled in the stock market, if you're in the hobby, not everything you buy or buy into always goes up. Same thing with young college athletes. While they may have had a good season 1 year, their career could hit a roadblock, or they could struggle and not be the same athletes that they originally looked like. So a lot of up in the air stuff. What does it mean to the hobby? Well, the pluses, right? You can get a card of an athlete. More than just baseball now, like Bowman Draft, but in other sports, 2, 3, 4, maybe even more years ahead of when they hit the pros. These cards, because, they won't maybe hit the pros for 3, 4, 5 years, it'll be fun to chase them. Some of these cards will probably have limited print. I don't think they're printing a lot of these products. We've just seen Bowman University come out for football. Now, I was offered that as a Montgomery Club member. I took a hard pass on it. Here's why. Believe me, no one is a bigger football fan than I am. I love football, played it, coached it, all that good stuff. But what do we know about football in the hobby, right? It is a quarterback-driven hobby. I looked at that checklist. Were there quarterbacks on it? Sure. But, quarterbacks are a crapshoot. Not everyone is going to be Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and those likes. And the product wasn't crazy expensive, but I just looked at the checklist. It didn't knock my socks off, and I just decided to go elsewhere, with my money. So, maybe that becomes a hit. Maybe there's a quarterback in there that becomes that next legend, that next superstar, and those boxes, are soon 4 figures someday. I don't see it. That was my assessment. But you never know. So the advantage is it lets you get in on a guy early and most likely at a cheaper price level if that's your thing. The bad thing is, right, it's kind of what Bowman did to the baseball hobby, right? It really sort of muddied the waters of what a true rookie card is. So let's use this Overtime Elite basketball product, right? All the cards are labeled as rookies and have a first Bowman logo on them. And so let's say one of those players gets to the NBA for, 3 years from now and is lights out, right? Wins Rookie of the Year, plays great. Everyone is obsessed by them. And now, they have their regular flagship Topps, who now has the basketball license, is making Topps Chrome basketball. Or, maybe they buy Fanatics or they buy Panini by then. And we have a Prism basketball still. And so what is the real rookie card? Is it that first Bowman with the RC logo? And now this card, while probably still in demand, it's considered, is the Overtime Elite and XRC and the current cards in the pro uniform and RC. I mean, we've had this debate for years. Heck, we've had it with Wander Franco this year with the Bowman Best coming out with the RC logo. So the problem with this is while we can get cards earlier of players we want to keep tabs on or have an interest in, it muddies the waters to what is a true rookie, what is his de facto card or hers to get. And then you get people debating and message board, and it just muddies the water up. So that's the downsize. The other down thing is when these companies are giving these millions of dollars to these young athletes, if a lot of these young athletes don't live up to that contract in terms of performance wise, right? That company loses. Who pays for the losses, right? We do, right? Affects the prices of products. And so the loss of that investment on a young prospect most likely is going to be covered by us, the consumer. So that's a negative as well. On the flip side of the coin, if that young player lives up to the hype and then beyond that, it's a win, and we get to chase those cards, including autographed renditions as well. So sort of the pros and cons are sort of kind of two-sided coins, right? They sort of cancel each other out. It's going to be up to us, the consumer, to kind of decide what we view, the NIL as. Where I said no to Bowman University, I'm sure plenty said yes. Where I didn't buy any Overtime Elite basketball, many others did. And so it's kind of going to be like the Wild Wild West, right? You do whatever you want to do, and we're going to see how this all shakes out. I don't. It doesn't bother me, where like I'm not an NFT guy. I'm not that adamant against it. I just think we have choices as consumers. I'm not sitting here talking into this microphone and tell you I'll never buy an NIL product like, a Bowman University. I just will pick my spots when and if I do. It's not where I'm just 100% against it. I'm just going to look at each release and each product on its own accord, based on the checklist, based on my feeling at the time that it comes out. It might even just come down to what's in my bank account, what's in my pocket, what's in my wallet, right? I think a lot of times we make purchase choices just based on that alone. So it's a different time in the hobby with the NIL because, again, this really opens the door across the board for individual contracts. And, that's good. I'm glad for the young athletes that they are able to market themselves, put themselves out there, get paid for their name, image, and likeness, get paid in a sense for the performance. That doesn't bother me there. But we're seeing millions of dollars being thrown around. That can be scary if these companies do that too much and lose, because on the bottom of that food chain is the consumer. That's you and me. All right, that's a wrap for episode 108. I want to thank you out there who listen and download the show. Without you, there's no us. That's easily said, but true. And so I thank you for that. I'm going to keep the closing here short and sweet. Again, thank you. Look for another episode of Hobby Quick Hits next Monday and another episode of Sports Card Nation this Friday, scheduled to appear. A part of our national preview, Mr. Ray Schulte, who does a great job in promoting that, lining up a lot of the stuff, getting us all excited for it. Even though we don't really need a lot of help, what he does makes it even better. So we're going to talk about the national, maybe some new things to expect, some tips and all that good stuff surrounding what I call the Super Bowl of the hobby, or what I'm now calling the real main event. So we'll see you for that on Friday. And again, we'll be back here for another episode of Hobby Quick Hits on Monday.